The colony ship Eternal Dawn shuddered violently as another explosion tore through the engine compartment. Captain Han Myri gripped the command console, her knuckles white with tension. Red emergency lights bathed the bridge in an eerie glow, while alarm sirens wailed throughout the dying vessel. "Hull breach in sections 4 through 9, reported Lieutenant Kim Juno, his voice barely steady. "We're losing atmosphere fast." Myri's heart pounded as she pulled up the evacuation status on her screen. 23 escape pods were loaded with colonists, families who had trusted her to lead them to a new world. But the display showed a cruel reality. Only 17 pods had functioning life support systems. 6 pods showed critical failures in their oxygen generators. "Captain, we have to choose," her first officer said, his voice breaking with emotion. "We can't fix them in time." Myri's hands trembled as she scrolled through the pod assignments. Pod 1 held the Chun family, with their twin boys. Pod 5 carried Dr. Park and his medical team. Pod 12 held elderly colonists who had sold everything for this journey. Her eyes stopped at Pod 17. Inside Pod 17 was her 3-month-old daughter, Ji-woo, along with 2 nurses who had volunteered to care for the infant during the voyage. The life support system glowed red across every indicator. Oxygen system offline. Temperature control failing. Backup power depleted. "Captain, the ship's core will collapse in 4 minutes," Juno warned. "We need to launch the pods now." Myri stared at her daughter's pod number. Her baby girl with curious dark eyes and tiny fingers that would grip her thumbs so tightly. She had barely held Ji-woo in the past month. Too consumed with maintaining the failing ship, now she faced an impossible decision. She could manually override one failing pod, potentially saving it by rerouting power from the ship's last reserves. But that would mean condemning others to certain death. As captain, she had sworn to protect all her crew. As a mother, every fiber of her being screamed to save her child. "Captain!" Juno shouted as another explosion rocked the vessel. With tears streaming down her face, Myri made the choice that would haunt her forever. She selected the 17 functional pods and initiated the launch sequence. Her fingers hovered over Pod 17's manual override, but she pulled back. She could not choose her daughter over the families in the other failing pods. She would not. "Launch all pods," she whispered, then louder. "Launch all pods now." 23 pods ejected into black void of space, scattering in different directions as programmed. Myri watched on the sensors as Pod 17 tumbled away, its beacon already flickering. The other failing pods showed the same fate. "Goodbye, my sweet Ji-woo," Myri breathed, her vision blurred with tears. "I'm so sorry." 3 minutes later, the Eternal Dawn exploded in a brilliant flash, its core finally giving out. The shock wave pushed the escape pods further apart, sending them spinning into unknown regions of space. Pod 17 drifted alone through the cosmic darkness. Inside, baby Ji-woo lay in her emergency cradle, wrapped in thermal blankets. The pod's dying computer had automatically activated the experimental cryosleep function, a desperate last resort designed for such catastrophic failures. It would slow the infant's metabolism to almost nothing, buying time that would likely never be used. The pod's emergency beacon transmitted for 3 days before its power died completely. No rescue ships heard its call. No coalition vessels patrolled this uncharted region. The pod became just another piece of debris floating through the endless void. For 47 days, Pod 17 tumbled through space, pulled by the gravity of distant stars. It passed through asteroid fields, skimmed the edge of a nebula's gas clouds, and finally entered the gravitational well of an unmarked planet. The world was called Drakthar by its inhabitants, a place of floating crystal mountains, purple skies, and ancient creatures that had isolated themselves in the galaxy for thousands of years. The Draken, massive dragon-like beings of scales and wings, had long ago decided that the younger races were too chaotic, too violent, too short-lived to bother with. Pod 17 screamed through Drakthar's atmosphere, its heat shields barely functioning. It crashed in the Crystal Peaks region, sliding across a plateau of blue stone before coming to rest against a formation of singing crystals. Steam rose from the scorched pod as the planet's cool air met its superheated hull. Inside, The cryo-sleep chamber flickered, its last reserves of power finally exhausted. The pods hatch released with a hiss, and the cold mountain air rushed inside. Against all odds, against every law of probability, baby Jiwoo took a shuddering breath and began to cry. 15 years had passed since Taemin found a crying human infant in the crashed pod. Jiwoo now stood on the edge of the singing cliffs, her dark hair whipping in the wind as she watched the young Draken practice their first flights. Their silver and bronze scales gleamed in the purple sunlight as they leaped from the crystal platforms, spreading their wings to catch the thermal currents. Again, you watched them with longing, Taemin said, landing beside her with a gentle thud. His massive silver form towered over Jiwoo, but she had never feared him. He was her father in every way that mattered. I practice everything else they do, Jiwoo replied, not taking her eyes off the flying dragons. I fight as well as Draken twice my age. I speak the crystal language better than most hatchlings, but I will never have wings. Taemin lowered his great head to her level. You have something they do not. You adapt in ways we cannot imagine. You create solutions we would never consider. Jiwoo smiled slightly. It was true that she had learned to navigate the floating mountains using gravity gliders, devices she had built herself from salvaged crystal cores and metal from her old escape pod. While dragons flew with wings, she soared to the air on currents of manipulated gravity, often moving faster and more precisely than her dragon companions. That afternoon, Jiwoo trained in the combat circles with Miho, a young bronze dragon who had become her closest friend. They sparred with energy staffs, the weapons crackling as they struck together. You are too fast, Miho complained, shaking his massive head. How do you predict my moves? You think like a dragon, Jiwoo said, breathing hard. You plan 3 moves ahead with perfect logic. But I think like a human. I improvise. I change my mind halfway through an attack. Elder Hannah watched from the observation platform, her ancient bronze scales dulled with age. She had opposed Jiwoo's adoption 15 years ago, but even she had grown to respect the strange human child. She fights with fire in her heart, even though she cannot breathe it. Hannah had once admitted to Taemin. Later that evening, Jiwoo returned to her dwelling, a crystal cave she had modified with human comforts. She pulled out the data pad she had recovered from her escape pod, the one piece of human technology she had managed to repair. On it were fragments of Earth's history, culture, and knowledge. She scrolled through images of human cities, watched videos of human art and music, read about human wars and peace treaties. These records showed her people as passionate, creative, and often contradictory. They built beautiful things and destroyed them. They loved deeply and fought fiercely. They were nothing like the patient, logical Draken. I am human, Jiwoo whispered to herself, touching the screen showing a human family. But I do not know what that truly means. A sudden alarm echoed through the crystal mountains, the warning system the Draken had not used in centuries. Jiwoo rushed to the council chamber, where the elders had gathered around a holographic display. What is happening? She asked. Taemin gestured to the display, showing distress signals from across the galaxy. The Velkar swarm has begun a new expansion. They have consumed 12 worlds in the past month. The Galactic Coalition is begging for our help. Jiwoo watched the desperate messages from human colonies, alien civilizations, entire species facing extinction. She saw human faces, people who looked like her, spoke languages she had heard in her data files, showed emotions she recognized but rarely saw among dragons. We will not answer, Elder Hannah declared. We abandoned the galaxy's conflicts long ago. The younger races make their own problems. Let them solve them. But they are dying, Jiwoo protested. Billions of innocent lives. The Draken do not interfere, Hannah said firmly. This is our way. This has always been our way. Jiwoo felt something burning in her chest, an emotion the dragons rarely experienced. Urgency mixed with compassion and anger. She looked at the human faces on the screen, then at the dragon elders surrounding her. She belonged to both worlds and neither. That night, Jiwoo made her decision. She could not sit idle while her birth species faced extinction. She could not ignore the dragon wisdom that taught her to think carefully and act with purpose. She needed to be both human and Draken, even if neither side fully accepted her. She began planning her departure from Drakthar, knowing Tamine would try to stop her. But she also knew that the galaxy needed someone who understood both the fierce adaptability of humans and the ancient wisdom of dragons. Someone who could be the bridge between worlds. Jiwoo packed her gravity glider, her energy staff, and the data pad containing humanity's history. She was ready to discover who she truly was. Jiwoo crept through the crystal hangar bay in the dead of night, her heart pounding. The Draken Scout ship Sky Dancer rested in its charging dock, its sleek hull reflecting the bioluminescent cave lights. She had chosen this ship carefully, small enough for one-person pilot, fast enough to outrun pursuit, and equipped with jump drive that could take her to Coalition space. "I knew you would come here tonight," Tamine's voice echoed through the hangar. Jiwoo froze, then turned to face her adoptive father. The great silver dragon looked at her with sadness in his ancient eyes, but he made no move to stop her. "You will not prevent me from leaving?" Jiwoo asked cautiously. "I raised you to follow your heart, even when it leads you away from me," Tamine said softly. "But know this, the humans will not understand you. You are too much like us now. And if you return, the Council may never forgive this theft." "I have to try," Jiwoo replied, tears forming in her eyes. "I cannot watch both my worlds burn and do nothing." Tamine stepped forward and gently touched his snout to her forehead, the Draken gesture a blessing. "Then fly well, little one. And remember, true strength comes not from choosing one nature over another, but from embracing both." Jiwoo climbed into the ship, her hands shaking as she activated controls. The Sky Dancer lifted smoothly from the dock and shot into the purple sky of Drakthar. Within minutes, she had cleared the atmosphere and engaged the jump drive. The stars stretched into lines of light, and she was gone. 3 days later, Jiwoo's ship emerged near the human colony of New Sol. Coalition patrol ships immediately surrounded her, weapons armed, demanding identification. When she transmitted her DNA signature and the pod records from 15 years ago, the response was chaos. "This is impossible," the patrol captain said over the comm. "You are Han Jiwoo, daughter of Captain Han Myri. You've been dead for 15 years. "I am very much alive," Jiwoo responded, "and I am here to help fight the Velkar." Within hours, Jiwoo found herself in a sterile debriefing room aboard the Coalition flagship Rising Sun. Human officers stared at her with a mixture of wonder and suspicion. She wore simple clothing provided by the crew, but her movements were too fluid, too precise. Her manner of speaking was formal and strange. She bowed in the Draken style, rather than shaking hands. Admiral Song entered the room, an older woman with sharp eyes and gray hair. "The genetic tests confirm it. You are indeed Han Myri's daughter. The captain has been searching for you for 15 years. She will want to see you. First, I must help fight the swarm," Jiwoo said. "There will be time for reunions after the galaxy is safe." The Admiral studied her carefully. "You were raised by dragons. Can we trust you?" "I am human by birth and Draken by choice," Jiwoo replied. "I am here to save both my peoples." Jiwoo was assigned to the defense fleet under Commander Park Hyun, a decorated officer known for his aggressive tactics. He was a broad-shouldered man with a permanent scowl and little patience for anything unconventional. "We attack hard and fast," Commander Park explained during their first strategy meeting. "We hit the Velkar with everything we have before they can adapt." Jiwoo shook her head. "That is exactly what they expect. The swarm learns from each encounter. Your aggressive attacks teach them your patterns. And what would you suggest?" Park asked, his tone mocking. "That we wait patiently like your dragon friends while the swarm consumes more worlds." "I suggest we think 3 moves ahead," Jiwoo said calmly. "We manipulate the environment, create false patterns, make them adapt to strategies we will not use. Then we strike when they're configured for the wrong defense." Park laughed bitterly. "War is not a chess game, girl. People are dying while you plan." But Admiral Song was intrigued. "We have lost 17 battles using conventional tactics. Let her try her approach at Epsilon 7. If she fails, we return to standard procedures." The colony world Epsilon 7 was the swarm's next target. Park wanted to position the fleet between the planet and the approaching Velkar ships. Jiwoo proposed something different. She had the fleet appear to retreat, leaving false sensor signatures and abandoned drones that mimicked disabled ships. "This is cowardice," Park protested. "We are leaving the colony exposed." "We are teaching the swarm that we are weak," Jiwoo countered. "They will commit fully to the attack, expecting easy victory." The Velkar took the bait. Their ships surged forward, surrounding the false targets. At that moment, Jiwoo had the real fleet emerge from behind Epsilon 7's moon, catching the swarm in a devastating crossfire. The Velkar ships, configured for pursuit rather than defense, were destroyed within minutes. Park stared at the tactical display in disbelief. They had won without losing a single ship. "How did you know they would fall for it?" "Because I think with both dragon patience and human creativity," Jiwoo said. "I see patterns they cannot predict." For the first time, Commander Park looked at her with respect instead of suspicion. The emergency transmission crackled through Jiwoo's quarters aboard the Rising Sun. She recognized the harmonic frequency immediately. It was a Draken distress signal, something that had not been broadcast in 10,000 years. "Drakthar is under attack," the message said in the crystal language. "The swarm has found us. We are falling." Jiwoo's blood ran cold. The Velkar had done the impossible. They had located the hidden dragon world and launched a full invasion. She ran to the bridge where Admiral Song was already reviewing the data. "How did they find Drakthar?" the Admiral asked. "The dragons have been hidden for millennia." "They tracked me," Jiwoo said, her voice hollow with guilt. "When I left, the swarm must have followed my ship's signature. I led them straight to my home." Commander Park Hyun entered the bridge, his face grim. "The Council is ordering all coalition forces to defend the core worlds. We cannot spare ships for a rescue mission to uncharted space." "Then I will go alone," Jiwoo said firmly. Park shook his head. "You will not. I am coming with you. So is my squad." "This is insubordination, Commander," Admiral Song warned. "Yes, it is," Park replied. "But Jiwoo saved Epsilon 7 and 17 other colonies. I will not abandon her people now." He turned to his officers. "Who volunteers for a suicide mission to save the dragons?" Pilot Choi Yuna stepped forward first, a skilled fighter ace with nerves of steel. "I have always wanted to see a real dragon. Count me in." 12 other soldiers followed, each one willing to risk everything. Jiwoo felt tears in her eyes. These humans barely knew her, yet they would die for her adopted family. "Thank you," she whispered. They took 3 fast attack ships and jumped to Drakthar. What they found was a nightmare. The sky was filled with Velkar vessels, black organic ships that pulsed with sickly green light. The floating crystal mountains were under siege, with swarm warriors swarming across the ancient structures. "There are too many," Yuna said, her hands tight on the controls. "We cannot fight them all." "We do not need to fight them all," Jiwoo said, accessing the Dragon Defense Network. "We need to fight smart." She opened a communication channel to the Draken Council. Elder Hannah's face appeared, bloodied and exhausted. "Jiwoo, you came back." "I brought friends," Jiwoo replied. "We fight together now, human and Draken." For the first time in history, dragons and humans coordinated their attacks. The Draken provided aerial superiority with their natural flight and fire breath, while the human ships delivered precision strikes with advanced weapons. Jiwoo directed both forces, speaking in the crystal language to the dragons and in human tactical codes to Park's squad. "Miho, take your wing and drive them towards Sector 7, Jiwoo commanded. "Yuna, be ready with missiles when they cluster." The combined tactics confused the Velkar. Their hive mind could not process this unprecedented cooperation between species. They had patterns for fighting dragons. They had patterns for fighting humans. But they had no pattern for both fighting as one. Jiwoo noticed something strange in the swarm's movements. When separated, the Velkar warriors acted erratically, but when grouped, they moved with perfect coordination. The hive mind needed proximity to function at full efficiency. "I know their weakness," Jiwoo announced. "Commander Park, I need you to trust me completely." "I trust you," Park said without hesitation. What is the plan? Jiwoo outlined a desperate strategy. She would fly directly into the swarm's command ship, the massive vessel at the center of their formation. Once inside, she would disrupt the Hive Queen signal, severing connection between Velkar units. That is suicide. Taemin's voice boomed over the comm. The great silver dragon was wounded, his scales scorched. I will not lose you again, little one. You taught me to embrace both my natures, Jiwoo replied. Human courage and dragon wisdom together. This is the only way. She took a small infiltration craft and, protected by a flying wedge of dragons and human fighters, penetrated deep into the swarm formation. Velkar warriors swarmed around her, but Miho and Park's forces kept them at bay with coordinated strikes. Jiwoo reached the command ship and slipped through a breach in its organic hull. Inside was like a nightmare. Pulsing walls of living tissue, corridors that shifted and breathed. She fought her way to the central chamber where the Hive Queen's consciousness resided. The Queen was a massive creature of biomechanical horror, but Jiwoo saw its weakness. The Hive mind could not understand individuality, could not comprehend the bonds of choice and friendship that had brought humans and dragons together. It saw only collective purpose, only unified thought. Jiwoo planted charges around the Queen's neural core and activated her communicator. Tell my fathers I love them both, Taemin and Commander Park. Tell them I chose this. Wait. Taemin's voice was desperate. There must be another way. But a massive form crashed the command ship's wall. Taemin himself, his silver scales torn and bleeding. He had followed her inside. I will not let you die alone, the great dragon said. Together, they destroyed the neural core. The Hive Queen's scream echoed across all frequencies as her consciousness shattered. Throughout the battlefield, Velkar warriors stopped moving, their coordination lost. The explosion threw Jiwoo and Taemin from the command ship. They fell through the purple sky of Drakthar, but a Velkar weapon struck Taemin. The dragon wrapped his wings around Jiwoo, protecting her even as the blast tore through his body. They crashed on a crystal plateau. Jiwoo crawled from beneath Taemin's wing to find her adoptive father dying, his silver blood pooling on the blue stone. You were never meant to choose between human and dragon, Taemin whispered. You are the bridge, Jiwoo. You always were. Do not leave me, Jiwoo sobbed, holding his massive head. I name you Kevvarsha, the one who walks between flames. Unite our peoples. Save the galaxy. Taemin's eyes dimmed. I am so proud, my daughter. The great dragon took his last breath as the purple sun set over Drakthar. Around them, the last Velkar ships fled into space, their invasion broken. Humans and dragons stood together among the ruins, victorious but grieving. Jiwoo held her father and wept, knowing that his sacrifice had given both her peoples a future. 5 years had passed since the Battle of Drakthar. The galaxy looked vastly different now. Where once there were isolated species fighting alone, there were now alliances and partnerships. The Draken had emerged from their 10,000-year isolation, and humanity had learned the value of patience and wisdom. At the center of it all stood Jiwoo, now 23 years old and bearing the title of Ambassador of the Draken-Human Alliance. She stood in her office aboard Unity Station, a massive space platform built jointly by humans and dragons. Through the viewport, she watched ships of dozens of species coming and going, Tarkelians, Zenari Lothians, and more. All had been inspired by the alliance between humans and dragons to set aside their own ancient conflicts. Ambassador, you have a visitor, her assistant announced. She says she is family. Jiwoo turned, puzzled. Miho and the other Draken were on diplomatic missions. Commander Park was visiting his family on Earth. Who could? A woman entered the office. She was in her 50s, with gray streaking her dark hair and lines of grief etched deep around her eyes. But those eyes, Jiwoo recognized them instantly. She had seen them in the mirror every day of her life. Jiwoo? The woman whispered, her voice breaking. Is it really you? Captain Han Myri, Jiwoo said formally, though her heart raced. My birth mother. Myri took a hesitant step forward. I have been searching for you for 20 years. When I heard the stories about the human girl raised by dragons, about Han Ji-woo who saved the galaxy, I hoped, but I was afraid to believe. They stood in awkward silence, two strangers connected by blood, but separated by everything else. Ji-woo did not know how to act around this human woman. She did not know human customs for family reunions. She had learned Draken ways, formal, measured, respectful, but this moment called for something she had never experienced. I do not know what to say to you, Ji-woo admitted honestly. You are my mother, but Taemin was my father. You are human like me, but I am also Draken. I am confused. Myri's eyes filled with tears. I made the choice to jettison your pod. I chose to save others instead of you. I have lived with that guilt every single day. But seeing you now, strong, capable, a bridge between worlds, perhaps my choice led you to your true purpose. Do you regret your decision? Ji-woo asked. I regret that I could not save everyone, Myri said. But I do not regret that you became who you are. You are extraordinary, Ji-woo, far more than I could have ever raised you to be. Over the following weeks, Myri stayed at Unity Station. They met for meals, though their eating habits were completely different. Myri ate quickly, like most humans, while Ji-woo ate slowly and deliberately, as the Draken had taught her. They talked, though Ji-woo's formal speech patterns often confused her mother. You speak like an ancient scholar, Myri said one evening. It is beautiful, but so different from how I imagined my daughter would sound. The Draken taught me their language first. Ji-woo explained. Human speech came later, from data files. I learned human words, but Draken sent in structure. Tell me about Taemin, Myri asked. Tell me about your father. Ji-woo's expression softened. She spoke of the great silver dragon who found her in the crashed pod, who claimed the Guardian's bond despite the Council's objections, who taught her to think with patience and act with wisdom. She told Myri how Taemin had blessed her departure from Drakthar, how he had died protecting her in the final battle. Myri listened with tears streaming down her face. He gave you everything I could not. He was there when I failed to be. You did not fail, Ji-woo said, reaching across the table to awkwardly pat her mother's hand, a human gesture she had practiced. You made an impossible choice. Taemin told me that true strength is not choosing one nature over another, but embracing both. I am your daughter and Taemin's daughter. I am human and Draken. All of it is who I am. Slowly, carefully, they built a relationship. It was not the bond between a mother and the child she raised. It was something new. Two adults learning to understand each other, learning to appreciate their differences while acknowledging their connection. Myri attended the dedication ceremony when Ji-woo opened the Academy of United Worlds. The massive complex floated near Drakthar, built in the design of both human architecture and Draken crystal structures. Young beings of 30 different species would train here, learning to work together as Ji-woo had learned. At the ceremony, Ji-woo stood before thousands of gathered dignitaries. Behind her on the stage stood the two most important figures in her life, Captain Han Myri, her birth mother who had made the impossible choice that set her on this path, and Elder Hannah, the ancient bronze dragon who had opposed her adoption, but became like a grandmother to her after Taemin's death. This academy represents our future. Ji-woo spoke, her voice carrying across a crowd. For too long, species have remained isolated, fearing what is different. But I am living proof that our differences make us stronger. I am human in body, Draken in spirit, and I belong to both worlds completely. She gestured to the massive inscription above the Academy entrance, written in 30 languages and the harmonic symbols of the Draken. From abandonment comes purpose. From difference comes strength. From unity comes tomorrow. The crowd erupted in applause, humans cheering, dragons humming their harmonic approval, dozens of species showing their support in their own ways. After the ceremony, Ji-woo walked through the Academy halls with Myri and Elder Hannah. She watched young humans learning to speak the crystal language while young Draken studied human innovation. She saw Tarkelian engineers working with Zenari scientists, building devices that neither could have created alone. You have done what I never imagined possible, Myri said, pride evident in her voice. You have united the galaxy. not united. Jiwoo corrected gently. I have shown them that unity does not require sameness. We can be different and still be together. That is what Taemin taught me. That is what you gave me when you let me go. Elder Hanahum thoughtfully. The abandoned child has become the galaxy's bridge. Taemin knew, even when you were an infant, that you were special. He would be so proud. Jiwoo looked out at the purple sky of Drakthar, remembering the silver dragon who had raised her, the human volunteers who had fought beside her, and all those who had believed that differences could be strength rather than division. She had been abandoned as an infant, raised by dragons, and had become something entirely new. Not human, not Draken, but both and more. She was a bridge between worlds. The proof that the galaxy's future lay not in isolation, but in embracing every part of who we are and who we can become together. The legacy of scales and stars had begun, and Jiwoo ensured endure for generations to come.